There is only one thing that can make this worthwhile, and do you know what that is? It's love.
Thank you to everyone for joining in. This is another episode of Fox Encounter, and I'm here with Gemma Gordon.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
And also, you have the pleasure of being my very first international guest. So that's pretty exciting.
Love it. All the way from London.
What first got you into acting, and what kind of keeps that passion alive for you for the art form of acting?
Yeah, good question. Well, we're talking like 12 years ago now. And to be honest, I was never very academic. I was quite good at getting involved in the classes at school and things, but I wasn't very good at actually doing the exams. However, when I started taking drama classes and things like that, I was good at it and I found myself getting, high grades. So I think as a kid, I never wanted to be an actor, but obviously when you're good at something, you feel good and you want to pursue it. So I sacked off the idea of going to university, and I went to a drama school in London instead. And then I did a transfer to New York. I was very, very lucky at the time. I auditioned and I got a scholarship, so I was able to go because obviously it's not cheap. So that's what, I just count myself so fortunate. And the exchange rate at the time was amazing. So I was able to go, spent 2 years there, and then graduated. And then, life happens. But moving out into the big bad world, I just have hustled really, and I think what keeps me going is the fact that I love doing it the most out of everything I do. And I think it's probably, if I didn't love it, if I ever stopped enjoying it, I wouldn't do it because it's too hard. It takes a lot of commitment, and I'm still on my journey, and getting to where I want to be, and I'm enjoying the process. So I think is what keeps me motivated, is the fact that I still really love it. It gets me excited. I love meeting people in the industry, and I love telling stories. Like, I am deep down a creative, and I'm hungry to work on, interesting people and open books. That's exciting for me. Developing characters, and you can get really lost in it. And that's what keeps it attractive to me, but mainly the fact that I just bloody love it. I wish I didn't. I wish I'd fallen in love with like medicine or something. There we go.
So safe to say that would be like in an alternate universe, you'd be in medicine rather than acting.
Yeah, that would be great.
And, I love that you mentioned creating the characters, because that's what a lot of times when I'm talking to actors, a lot of the times that's kind of where it started, was just loving film and watching film, and then kind of just starting to create your own characters, even as a child or wherever it might be. It's just a lot of the creating that character and stuff, and that really is we do that all of the time as children or even as adults, whatever, and that truly is like the basis of performance.
I totally agree. And what I love about screen acting in particular is it's so truthful, and you're just responding and being that person in those circumstances at that time. And it sounds so simple, but it's actually a really beautiful thing when you're properly, engaged, and working with other actors and just playing around, like improvisation, and you discover so much. Yeah.
It's definitely a release. You have all of this like energy inside of you, and when you get to perform, whether on stage or on set, it is definitely a release.
Yeah. Yeah.
When is the last time that you were in the States?
I was in the States actually a couple of weeks ago. um, yeah, I was in California, Los Angeles, actually for the first time. And it is so different to London. Like, it is probably the opposite of anywhere I've been. Like, what I loved about it was the kind of relaxed kind of vibe. The sun was shining every day. People just seem more chilled out in comparison to London. What surprised me about it was the traffic. And probably everyone says that. It's probably such a standard thing to say, but I was really shocked at like how much you just sat there and didn't move. Because people always mentioned, oh, the traffic is really bad in LA. And I was like, yeah, well, it can't be that bad. Like, what's traffic jam? Like, get over it. But no, it was pretty bad. But I met some really interesting people. I went to some really cool places. I went to Universal. My good friend Brian that I was staying with kindly took me there. I went to Marina del Rey. I went to, a few, Santa Monica, Culver City. I got my tourist on when I was there, which was great.
Back in April, at the beginning of April, I went to California for a couple of days for a concert. And I actually saw Sigrid.
Oh, I've heard of her.
Yeah, she's an artist from Norway. She doesn't really do very many US shows very often. So I was like, I have to take this chance and I have to go to California, even though I'm not a huge fan of California.
See, that's interesting. Why aren't you a huge fan? Because everyone seems to either love it or hate it.
Well, I'm kind of in the middle with California. I mean, it is, even though I live in Arizona, so we're literally right next to California. So there are a lot of similarities, but there are also a lot of differences. Like, again, the traffic. Like, anytime I needed to get somewhere while I was there, it took me like an hour to get there, whereas in Arizona, it's like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And everyone was really nice, so that was good. Everything is just so expensive. So that was also the other thing. Other than that, I mean, I think it's a very nice place to visit. I personally don't think I'd ever want to live there, but it's always a nice place to visit every once in a while.
It's so true that you say things are expensive. I think I went out for a coffee and I was just like 2 lattes or whatever. And they were like, that's $15. I was like, what?
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous.
She was like, yeah, that's what it is. I was like, right, okay. But, it's a beautiful place. So I really love the States, though. I'd love to see more of it. I've always wanted to visit Miami. I really want to go to Texas because I just love... Have you heard of Louis Theroux? Yes. Yeah, like a BBC documentary filmmaker. So he always goes to the US and does these crazy documentaries, and all these really interesting people seem to live in Texas. So I just really want to visit.
Yeah. Myself being from the States, could you tell us a little bit about your kind of upbringing in, like, where did you grow up?
Sure. So my dad is a Church of England priest. So that meant that we moved around quite a lot. So basically with his job. So we moved around England. So I was born in Stoke-on-Trent, which is a city in the north of England. Then we lived in Reading, which is a city kind of in the mid part of England. Then we were in Southampton, which is on the south coast. And then we ended up he got a substantive post in Hertfordshire, which is just on the outskirts of London, in a little town called Berkhamsted, which was really great for me. Both me and my sisters, I have 2 sisters, an older one and a younger one. So I'm the middle.
I think I could have guessed that.
Not go into what that means. And it was definitely useful for me being close to London, with going into what I'm going into. So that was kind of a blessing that we ended up here, and they're still here. I think my older sister is pregnant, and she lives in the north of England in a city called Leeds. So I think when my parents eventually retire, they'll move up to Leeds, because they'll want to be around like her kids and stuff. So that's quite cool. But yeah, I would say my upbringing, I have the most memories of Hertfordshire, so the final place. So I would say that was where I was brought up. But on my passport, it says I was born in Stoke-on-Trent.
Yeah, I hear so much about like these parts of London and the UK and stuff. And one day I will visit. One day I will be there.
England would love to have you. Have you ever been over to the UK?
No, I haven't. I might go next year. We actually had planned. This was like a couple years ago. We had actually planned a trip to the UK, but the pandemic started, so everything, everything was canceled. So like everything got put on hold, and then it's basically just trying to rebuild everything and just like kind of readjust. And so hopefully sometime next year we'll be able to go.
100%. Are your kids into Harry Potter at all?
I believe my oldest son is.
Into Harry Potter?
Yeah. Right now he's like very much into gaming, so he doesn't really watch a lot of movies. I try to get him into watch. I actually just got him into watching The Lord of the Rings, and he loved it, and so that made me very happy.
I want them to like just remake the whole thing, and I'll just push myself in front of the director and give me the part of an elf. So I say that obviously because there's lots of like Harry Potter things like for kids like in London, because obviously it's developed here, but you can get a real experience like if obviously go to London, but if you can get out to like the more rural parts of the UK, they're absolutely stunning. I saw a funny meme the other day which said how Americans view the UK, and it was just like a circle with like London in it. Like everyone forgets that you've got Scotland just up the road, Wales, Northern Ireland you can get to, and then you can get to Paris in like an hour. And it's I would if you do come, I would make a proper thing out of it and like make the most of being so close to Europe as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of the big appeal of me wanting to go, because everything's just right there. And it's funny that you mentioned that meme about like the UK and London, because I've seen same ones about like America. It's like the only thing that like from the outside world, the only thing that exists in America is like LA and New York, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's why I really want to see like other parts of the US. I think it's just because what you see on the news, what you hear about and everything,
Yeah, definitely the big cities get a lot more of the hype in the news, and like the other rural areas don't get talked about. That's where I live in Arizona. I live in a more rural area.
Amazing.
Yeah, so like there are some cities, but everything's very spread out. So there's like you'll get into, we call it the valley because we live in a literal like valley. We're just surrounded by mountains, mountain ranges, a lot of mountain ranges. They're very beautiful. Up north, there's a lot of forest areas and a lot of hills that you can go into. We do get some snow in the northern part of Arizona, because a lot of people think that Arizona, it's just hot and it never snows. But we do actually get a lot of snow in the north, like about an hour from where I live. So there's skiing and snowboarding, and it's very, very beautiful up there. I'm just so much in love with the more rural areas, more open spaces. But I also do appreciate the cities because I love my food and I love being able to just go to like a shop somewhere. Yeah. I don't want to have to, if you live in a more rural area, sometimes you might have to drive very far just to get to the supermarket.
Yeah, I'm completely the same as you in that respect. I love cities for now, but when I, like settle down a bit, I guess, and have like, I don't know, maybe have a kid or whatever. I really want that country life, like very much. So even like milking the cows. That's the dream. So can you give me any movies that are set in Arizona so I can give them a watch and take a look about what you might be surrounded by? I'll write them down.
Yeah, there are actually a few. It's funny because I collect every movie that's actually set in Arizona or based in Arizona. I buy just because.
Why was I sensing that? That's why I asked the question. I was sensing it. I was like, this guy knows a lot about movies.
Yeah, just because also because like, we don't really get talked about a lot. When they think of, funny enough, a lot of Westerns. I don't know how familiar you are with like the Western films. Like those, a lot of those are set in
Eastwood.
Yeah. A lot of those are set in Arizona because that's where a lot of that stuff took place. Like, so that's going to be most of the stuff that like comes up when you look up films based in Arizona. There will be Westerns like a Tombstone with Kurt Russell.
Okay.
There is a Nicolas Cage film that is hilarious called Raising Arizona.
Okay. Raising Arizona.
Yeah, that one's a good one. Let's see. If you're into the more like comedic science fiction, there's a movie called Evolution that takes place there. Eight-Legged Freaks is another one.
So it's top secret about me. Well, it's not top secret. Everyone I know knows it. I am obsessed with horror films. Like, I love them. I'm one of those people that if you give me like a choice of what to watch, I'm like a horror movie or a documentary. Yeah. Because I just think those actors have to go to such extremes and make it truthful.
Yes.
Like you're not going to in real life be chased by a ghost or a spider like in Eight-Legged Freaks. It's not going to happen, right? And those actors have to go there. So every time I watch a horror film, I'm like, this is an acting lesson. Do you know what I mean? I just finished one on Netflix. It's just been released. Really good film. It was called just something standard like Don't Leave or Don't Get Out, or it was basically like Don't Leave This House. But you know, I need to say this without ruining it, but something like disgusting happens at the end. Like it's gore, it's horrible. And she went there and I believed her. I believed she was in that situation and I thought that was amazing.
I'll DM you some other ones. I'll DM you a list of some other ones that are a little bit more recent or just that I think are just like really good.
Okay.
You mentioned a little bit about just kind of having to go there. Like in terms of acting, in your personal experience, like do you have like a mental kind of mantra in a way, or like a mental like thing you do before getting into character?
I think character is such a broad term because I think ultimately you want to bring that role to you. You know, you need to, there needs to be parts of that character that are you. And that's what you need to, I think, connect to. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Quite hard to put it, like explain it. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel anyway, like with auditions and things. If you get a script, you think, okay, well, how would I respond if I was in these circumstances and that was being said to me, knowing what this character has just come from, and how can I make that truthful? I guess that's our job, to make things truthful. Mm-hmm. So I guess there's no like prep, but I think, you know, if it's like an intense audition, going for like a walk with no headphones, nothing, just breathing, or calling a coach and, you know, having them bring that out of you just to like center you. I think you just have to concentrate, but you've got to be relaxed. It's so important that you're relaxed, I think. I guess it just takes practice.
Yeah.
And also I find like it's helpful to, like, for example, if you're having like if like me, Gemma, is having like a bad day or a great day, to bring that too, because you can never fully hide like what's going on with you, even when you're working.
Do you ever find yourself in that moment where you kind of have to, I guess, get out of your own head to do these audition tapes sometimes?
Yeah, all the time. Because I've got so many things going on. And yeah, just breathing. And I mean, when I was training, we had all these movement and breath classes, and you're thinking like, what is the point of this? Like, seriously, like, why am I humming and in downward dog at 8 a.m. in the morning? I'm like, I'm at drama school. But stuff like that really does help, I think. Like having a little stretch, just connecting to your breath. I think that I know a lot of actors who really, that really helps them, and they cannot focus unless they've done that. And then ultimately listening is very important, because you're responding. So you've got to be actively listening. So I guess like you've interviewed some brilliant actors, and I guess they'll say something different, but yeah, I think it's just going back to centering yourself, because the real world can get pretty crazy, and you juggle a million different things are going on, we're looking at our phones, so I think you've got to have that discipline just to stop, like, this is the situation I'm in right now, and focus.
With like how the world has changed and stuff, and how auditions have changed, do you think you've mastered the craft of the self-tape yet, or do you think that's still a long way off?
So we're so lucky as UK actors. We have the casting directors are so like giving. I'm sure they are in the States as well, but they do really affordable courses. And I mean, lockdown, it was just like doing back-to-back like self-tapes, not for jobs, just purely for like practicing and making sure. And I think my self-tapes improved a lot in lockdown, because it was like, you've just got to make the most of having this time to like practice. And it is self-tape now, but actually I don't mind it. Like I like it, to be honest. I definitely get called in more, because I guess the casting can see more actors, which is great. And we have, Zoom for, Zoom recalls and all of that. I have noticed it is slowly opening up. I've noticed that they're doing kind of like initial self-tapes and then in-person meetings, which is great. But no, it's great to like work with a casting director, obviously, but I don't mind self-tapes.
That whole time too, I think, forced a lot of people to, I guess, just be more creative. That's kind of where I started this whole thing with the podcasting and like videos on YouTube. It's because I was at home bored, and I honestly just kind of missed the social interaction with people. So I made friends on YouTube. I found other like content creators, and just, started doing live streams, because I just wanted to have conversation with people. And that formed into what I do now here.
Yeah. And how cool is that, like we're speaking, we're on other sides of the world, and, we're having like a conversation like we were in the same room.
When sending something in, possibly to to casting in the US, do they have you often do an American accent, or do you choose to do one?
It always says on the brief. I would personally say that my American accent is a 10-10. I'm kidding. But actually, no, I actually do think it is quite good. So I feel very comfortable with going up for US accent roles. If I didn't, I'd say to my agent, don't submit me, because I think if you're going to do an accent, you've got to do the accent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't like wing it. But it's honestly a real mix. Like there's some jobs here that require the US accent. There's some jobs I taped for a role in the US and they were British characters. So I was able to just do my own accent. So I guess it just completely depends.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny though, because I have quite a few American friends in London, and when I'm around them, I do hear I'm that annoying person that does go American when I'm with, and it's so annoying, and I hate myself. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going American again. Because I know when I hear people like pick up on an accent, like I'm like, oh God, why are they changing their accent? But I think you just naturally do it, don't you?
Yeah. I won't have you do your American accent, but I kind of I used to do the same thing when I still kind of do it. I don't think I think of them more as impressions because I'm trying to be funny.
Please give me one.
Okay. Not on here, but maybe. If I do, I'll have to like edit it out. I'll edit it out. We'll see it. But I do that. I used to do that a lot as a kid. I would always like mimic Jim Carrey or like Austin Powers. That was like the closest thing I knew to what like a British accent sounded like, even though it's like a total exaggeration. And or I would just like I got really good at mimicking.
Yeah, or you pick up different words. Like there's some really good like Scandinavian crime dramas. I don't know if you've seen them, like The Killing, Borgen. There's loads of ones, but I love like their language. I love how it sounds on the ear. And for thank you, they say tuck, like tuck.
Yeah. And
I just think it's really fun to say. So when I'm watching one of those, I'm always like waltzing around going like tuck.
Yeah, for me, it's the Southern accent. I really enjoy like American Southern accents because they just sound so fun, and it's a weird one because depending on your dialect and how you're saying it, it can come off as genuine, or it'll come off as insulting.
Like you're taking the piss, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, you could say something like, "Hey Jethro, what are you doing over there?" or something like that, and it could sound just natural, or it can sound like you're just trying to make fun of Southern people.
Yeah, which they probably don't like.
Yeah. I'm Native American, and a lot of us have certain dialects when we talk, so I can do them very, very well, but it does come off as a little obnoxious. So I try not to do that. But yeah, we as like Native Americans as well, like we all have different, depending on your tribe, we all have like different accents and the way they say words. We'll start to say a word and just completely cut the ending off, but we still know what you're saying.
What, so like the word car, would just say car, but you guys would go car. Mm-hmm. So you like say the R, right?
Yeah.
We drop R's, but you drop T's.
Yeah.
So like we'd say better, and you're better.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
It really is. The human language, especially the English language, is just like there's no one way of doing it. Even though it's like it's a universal language, there's just so many ways of doing it, and there's no right or wrong way, I guess.
Yeah. Like there's me, like, oh yeah, I can do a great American accent. No, I can probably do one dialect really well, and that's it. Because there's more than one American accent. It's like over here we have so many dialects, like so many. You can drive for 30 minutes and people will sound different.
Yeah,
you know.
One word I think is funny that I've heard in some films that I've watched from the UK. I don't even know if I'm going to say it right, but it sounds similar to something we say is like instead of "isn't it." Yeah, and as like I said, in Native American languages, we don't say "isn't it," and I think that's like a universal one because every like person I've ever met from different tribes, no one says isn't it. We say in it.
In it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard that so many times from like British films, and I'm like, that sounds so funny because we say the same exact thing.
In it. Yeah. Yeah. So you'd say like, oh, it's a bit hot today, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I always thought that was so funny.
It's a bit hot today, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And I
like, are you okay?
Yeah, I don't think anytime even to me myself, like saying isn't it sounds so strange, like I'm forcing it out when I want to say in it so bad.
Yeah. In it. Yeah.
In it. So there's one thing like we might have in common.
Yeah, I bet there's lots more things as well. You just have to find them.
Mm-hmm.
When I was last in LA, I bought my friend some tea, and he couldn't get his head around having milk in the tea. I was like, yeah, you put milk in it, but only if it's English breakfast tea. Most other teas you wouldn't have milk in. And then I was like, you need to dunk your biscuit in the tea and then put it in your mouth straight away.
Yeah. I love tea. I've always wanted to try that. Just because like I love all types of tea. It's my favorite thing to drink. Besides like water and stuff, that's really the only thing I drink. I don't drink anything like caffeinated. Nothing too caffeinated. I don't drink anything carbonated.
That's really good. I'm so jealous that you have that. I'm so delirious if I don't have a coffee in the morning. Like I'm almost like don't even try and have a conversation with me because like it's not gonna happen.
And I've always wondered about that, like the whole like milk in the tea. I'm like, I mean, like here, I don't know how it is over there, but a lot of like instead of milk, we use honey. We'll put like honey in our tea.
Yeah, I think people do that. I think that's just such a healthy thing to do. I'm just like, give me a coffee. But yeah, honey and tea. Yeah. When you come to England, there's a few places. Actually, I'm going to text you. It's an amazing place in Vauxhall, which is in central London, but no one really goes there because it's Vauxhall. But there's actually quite a lot going on. Like this tea house, it's ran by they're a Jewish family, and it is amazing. And they don't serve coffee, and they have every type of tea. And when you walk in, it's like it's all in these jars behind the counter, and they do these amazing slices of cake as well. I'm a big tea and cake fan. Like, I really enjoy like tea and a cake. But yeah, they have so many different teas. I'm actually gonna write that down to make sure that I remember to text it to you. And it's called the Tea House Theatre, and they also show Russian plays.
Oh,
Super
interesting.
random. Super random. But there we go.
That sounds like my kind of place. The more random, the better.
Yeah, exactly.
Here in our McDonald's, they have a sweet tea that is absolutely delicious. It's not very healthy, but it is so good.
Sweet tea. Is that like bubble tea? I
want to say yes. It's like an equivalent of that.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna try it. I don't think we have it in the McDonald's over here. London has become so woke. There's now a vegan Burger King, which is great.
Yeah, I just recently got into boba. Don't know if you've heard of that, but like we have boba shops here that are starting to spring up everywhere. There's one like right around the corner from my house. And a lot of their stuff is vegan. There's a taro smoothie, and you can throw like passion fruit poppers into them. They're basically like little passion fruits, and when you drink it, they kind of pop in your mouth and release the juices.
Oh, cool.
So and it's very good. And at first, I was a little hesitant, like, what is it made from?
I'm definitely gonna have to try this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's called. Yeah, I'll text that to you too. Taro smoothie.
It's just gonna be exchanging.
Yeah. We'll exchange recipes and stuff like that. So going back to growing up in London, there are obviously a lot of iconic British television shows and films and stuff like that. Would you say if there's something that's not as well known outside of the UK that you wished kind of had more like more of an audience, because growing up, I knew a lot about British comedies because my dad was into them. Funny enough, I don't know how he got into them, but he was very much into Monty Python, and he loved Rowan Atkinson, as Mr. Bean. So I grew up on a lot of those British comedies because we had a little station called PBS where they would play a lot of British comedies and sitcoms. So I grew up on those, and a lot of people I know didn't. So growing up, I would always like talk about them, and no one would know what I was talking about until I started meeting people from the UK, and they're like, "Oh, I grew up on that. I love that show. How do you know about that?" And I would tell them like, "Yeah, PBS over here in the States, they would play stuff from different countries." And I always wondered about like how, like we get some of those things that are a little bit more digestible, I guess, but I'm sure there are a ton of classics that, don't get as known outside of the UK.
I think what people really appreciate about the kind of stuff that we churn out here is obviously the period dramas, which are well known, like like The Crown and all of that. And then the comedies. Obviously, like, our sense of humor is pretty dry. I don't know why, but it's quite, someone falls over in the street in a funny way, like you're more likely to laugh and say, "You're right, mate," than, rush over and do you know what I mean? It's just kind of like just the British sense of humor. And we have some amazing actors and actresses over here that have kind of made their own work. So there's a comedian called Miranda Hart. She has a show called Miranda. I'm not sure that's shown in the US, but it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's quite slapstick. It's very funny, in my opinion. I learned from watching Ricky Gervais's special the other night that you can't say something's not funny. You say, in my opinion, that wasn't funny. Do you know what I mean? I was like, learned something tonight. Thanks, Ricky. And another one, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I feel like she's more well-known in the USA. She's so funny. And she made a show called Fleabag. Yeah, you've heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Okay, good. Gosh, there's so many. It'd almost be great if you could log on to BBC iPlayer and just have a look. I'm not entirely sure what's shown in the US and what's not, but we also have some really good dramas as well. And they cannot just be set in London, which is quite refreshing. There's a few set in like Scotland. There's an amazing Welsh crime series called Hidden. It's got 3 seasons. And that's very, very good. That's kind of, it reminded me of the Scandinavian ones that I mentioned earlier. That's something I'm really into. I love a good crime drama. And I like ones that don't leave you, with the story resolved. Don't want to take this off British TV, but what I really love about like this, what the Scandinavians do is they leave you at the end of a series feeling a bit sick and like, well, that didn't really resolve itself, did it? And I quite like that. Maybe in the UK and the US, we're more about, rounding the story off. There's some really good French ones as well. Obviously the UK is brilliant, but also what Europe churns out as well is excellent and could be on par with the US.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of different film companies that are starting to put out stuff that's actually very, very good, whereas before, like they weren't as well known. Like even in Indonesia, I've been getting into a lot of foreign film. So like in Indonesia is having a really big boom in their kind of superhero action genre. And it's
awesome.
it's actually very good. And then there are also different Russian films that I really enjoy. And even some of like what Bollywood does, like a lot of their really insane action movies. They're just, you can tell they're just having so much fun, It doesn't need to be serious. It's just a lot of people just having a good time. And you mentioned kind of wrapping things up in TV shows. I actually like the more ambiguous endings where I get to think, like, make up my own story, I guess, or make up my own ending. I actually much prefer that than, having it all gift wrapped for you.
I think a lot of people do. It's not a bad thing if the person that everyone really loves dies. Do you know what I mean? Don't keep them alive to keep us happy.
I always say that, like, towards the end, I'm like, I hope this person dies at the end. And like my friends would be like, why? No, they're awesome. And I was like, but how much more impactful would it be if they just died?
It's almost like you want them to take that risk.
Kind of like at the end of or there's always that like mystery of like maybe not knowing, and you're thinking like, will they, won't they? That's also pretty exciting. Like the last two Mission Impossible films, like I love Mission Impossible, but at the end I'm like, will Tom Cruise die at the end of this? Is that the like really when it's all based on the character, because when you have a character whose life is in danger 24/7, like, do we really expect them to just like take up a house in the country and just live, a normal life? No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, those characters' arcs and their stories and their way of life will ultimately lead in their death.
Yeah, it's like Jason Statham in Crank.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm developing me and my very good friend and I are kind of talking about a story at the moment, and we keep talking about it, and it's slowly, coming out, and we're going to develop it into a film, which I'm really excited about. But we're kind of going through that character development now and thinking there's a real excitement in the fact, like, I really love it when the audience knows something that the characters in the film don't. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a real excitement and juicy thing in that. So I like watching projects which kind of portray that, because it's great to, I think, as an audience member as well, to like be actively involved. I mean, people watch entertainment to get away from life, right? Just to have a break from it. That's the beauty of it. It's, so it's fun to be able to develop things where it's like it's the audience are in on it almost, but they're just viewers. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, the more, I guess, interactive that something is, that I think is what really, personally, that's what kind of hooks me into it. Yeah.
Speaking of interactive, back to Universal for a second. I loved putting on those glasses. I did the tour. I love putting on the glasses in like the Fast and Furious thing. I was really scared, but it was great. Like the Jurassic Park one. Oh my God. It felt like the dinosaur was coming straight at you. Loved it. And then I dropped the glasses and then, yeah. So classic me.
Classic Gemma.
Wasn't like, stop the bus. Ruin it for everyone else.
Actually, I'm going to be in California 3 times this year. Back in April, I have a trip planned next month, like a family trip. We're going to San Diego. And then in October, Sigrid will be back to do a couple shows in LA, which I will go see. As as somebody who said they don't really care for California very much, I'm going to be there a lot this year.
I really enjoy Lana Del Rey's music, and she sings a lot about California. I've noticed California and New York. She sings a lot about it. I found also what I noticed in lockdown, especially in London, people were moving out, because, and even actors, they were like, if I don't need to be in an audition room, what's the point in living in, expensive cities? And I also feel like when you venture out of big cities, people tend to be more friendly and welcoming. Would you, I think?
Yeah, I mean, I would say where I live, it's pretty welcoming, because we have, especially where I grew up, it was very diverse. And so everyone got along. And so I've kind of always wanted to maintain that type of life where wherever I live, I don't want it to be predominantly like I said, me being Native American, I've never really lived in a community of Native Americans because I've always felt that, and my parents felt this as well, which is why they moved us out to the middle of nowhere. And, just to be exposed to different people and exposed to different ways of life.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And it's probably shaped who you are today as well.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to travel, like no matter what age you are, and not traveling like backpacking around the world, but I mean like experiencing and talking to, because everyone has different upbringings, everyone has different cultures, and it's, I can't imagine just being so close-minded thinking everyone else is the same as you, because people are not at all. Everyone is so different, and it's lovely.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be, but it's great to like discover. I went to Cape Verde once, which is a little island off the coast of Morocco, and I loved it. And the people were like, no stress, Cape Verde, like that was their saying. They just would say no stress, and they didn't stress about anything. And it was great. And that was their, like, every person I met there like was pretty content, and it was just so nice. And I came back to the UK feeling like no stress. Do you know what I mean? And now whenever I get stressed, I just think of Cape Verdeans and just think no stress.
That's how a lot of times it is in the South here, just because everything down there moves a lot slower, so everyone's just very content with just being. Whereas in the cities, everything moves so fast, and we're constantly in a hurry to be somewhere, constantly in a rush to do things. As much as I hate the heat, I love living here because there is a great kind of like balance. Even if you do live in the city, it's not as rushed. There's not a lot of traffic.
Do you feel it's quite a safe city to live in?
Yeah, the area I live in, it's very quiet. My neighbors, I met them literally once when I first moved in. When I first moved into my house, the neighbors came by. I was like, "Oh, hi, welcome to the neighborhood." Never met them again, and I've been here for 3 years. I might be the annoying neighbor. I have a motorcycle that's very loud, so I'm always out there working on the motorcycle and stuff. And they're, I'll see them come out every once in a while walking their dogs. Everyone kind of just stays to themselves, which is what I like personally.
Yeah, because I guess it's like the balance of, it's great to get on with your neighbor, but at the same time, you don't always want them in your hair asking for things. And you don't want to be like hiding behind the curtain, in case they come over. But it's also nice to know that, like, if there was an emergency, they might be able to help out, and I'm sure you'll do the same. How long have you been riding a motorcycle?
Funny enough, not very long. I would say I got it in October of last year, and that was just kind of by chance. I've always wanted to, but because my dad rode motorcycles his whole life, and so I kind of always had an interest in it, but just never it always seemed kind of impractical for me, especially with having children. I mean, I can't stick them on the back of the motorcycle.
Yeah. So for example, like, you're taking a trip to California, would you ride down there on your bike?
Yeah, that would actually. Yeah.
Is that a thing? Yeah.
There's a lot of that goes through here. We have I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Route 66 there's like a ton of songs written about it. Yeah. It goes straight from
I'm reading about it.
Yeah. It pretty much just goes from California through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, like all the way across the country. And a lot of people use that. Yeah, a lot of people use that route. But I think it's really fun, And I never really had the thought of doing it, but then when the opportunity came up, then I started to learn, took some classes, watched some YouTube videos, and got the hang of it. And I love it. I do it like pretty much every day now.
That's awesome. I had a friend when I was in New York, and he's still one of my closest friends now. I need to call him back, actually. That reminded me. But he had a bike, and he used to pick me up in Brooklyn, and would go up and down the avenues in New York, and it was amazing. I just remember the first time we went, just like pinching myself, like going over Brooklyn Bridge, like, and I'd have like a jacket on, but then I was just in like bare legs and sandals, and would be on like a really fast motorbike going fast. But it's one of the best memories of my life. It was like just incredible, just how everything just goes by you so fast, and you know it's really loud, but you don't really hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't like driving it, obviously. I was just on the back, but I think you've got to have some real balls to be able to go, because they go quick, as I'm sure you pick up speed so fast and you just go for it. But am I right in saying that when you put the helmet on and stuff, you don't hear the bike?
Yeah,
I don't remember thinking this is really loud. I just remember thinking this is amazing. But when you're like walking along the street or the pavement or whatever, and you hear a motorbike, you're like, you're like, stop being so selfish. So loud, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny because I used to do the same thing too. Like when people would do that, or just like pass me as I'm driving, and they just like pass me. I was like, whatever.
They just like really like rev up. It's like, yes, we get it. You're on a motorbike.
We did talk a lot. I still had some other questions, but we can definitely
you want to
pick up again.
Yeah, that's you might as well. That's fine. Hopefully I've covered. Well, it's just so nice talking to you, to be honest. So hopefully you're getting what you need.
Yeah, I mean that's really the basis of this, is partly in parts talking about film and acting, but also just the human conversation.
Yeah, that's what I really enjoy listening to when I listen to podcasts and things. I love just hearing them just have a chat.
Yeah, but also talk film, because that's what I love, and that's basically everything that I do. It's just watch movies. Any chance that I get to just sit down and watch a movie, that's what I'm doing. Okay,
I really want you to watch the one I mentioned earlier, the horror film. It was something like a classic horror movie title, like Don't Get Out, Don't Let Him In, or Don't Look at Him, or just something like that. It was really good.
All right, yeah, definitely. I'll check it out. Just, I guess we can just leave it off with like, what would be, do you have a favorite movie or a favorite list of movies?
Okay, so my favorite movie would 100% be, and it hasn't changed actually for about 4 years, Thelma and Louise.
That also ends, I think, does that end in Arizona? I think the ending was in Arizona.
Yeah, when they go off.
Yeah.
Brilliant movie. I guess my second more modern movie, I don't know if you've heard of Sexy Beast. It's a British film. I'll text it to you. It's like kind of a gangster film. I really love that. I watched that recently and I was like, oh, that's definitely up there. I'm a big Rosamund Pike fan. I just love her work. I love her acting. I think she's brilliant. So like her classics, Gone Girl, I love that movie. Yeah, I think it's always Thelma and Louise, and I really want it to be something different one day, but it is literally just my favorite movie.
Yeah. There's a movie that I think is very underrated that kind of got me into the more technical appreciation and love for the more technical side of filmmaking. And that is the movie called Dark City.
Yeah, I've never heard of Dark City.
Anytime I get to talk about it, I'm like, watch Dark City. It's like,
adding it to the list.
Yeah, it predates The Matrix. And every time I hear someone say, they talk about The Matrix as like kind of like questioning your thoughts of reality, I always say like, well, Dark City did that first. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I've definitely got to watch it now then.
Yeah, because like that's kind of like Dark City is like, it is an experimental thing, like experimenting on like the human soul, like what I guess constitutes the human soul and stuff like that. And there are a lot of really good set pieces. It's very gothic. It's dark, like Dark City. It takes in place entirely at night. And the city just never gets, there's never any sun there. It's just constantly dark and no one questions it. Because I love that aspect of it. I love the acting, and the actors bring a lot of really great stuff to film, because you feel their performances. But there is also, the set design, the costume designers and everything else.
I honestly feel like, the acting, like, slice of the cake is just a slice. There's so much more, like, from start to finish that goes into it. Yeah. I'm really hoping they bring out awards for casting directors soon as well, like Oscars and stuff like that. I don't know why they don't, because I think that's a massive
yeah, no one talks about that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Gemma, once again. This was a great conversation.
It was so nice talking to you. Honestly, I hope we can do it again.
I'm pretty sure I can come up with more questions, and even if we don't, we can just have an awesome conversation about stuff. Yeah.
And hey, when you're in London, you've got to let me know. But I'll probably be in the US before, so
we'll come back here, finish up more conversation.
Sounds good. Have a lovely day.
You too. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
That's so true that you say that. So cute. I love that. Hey, Spider-Man.